This chapter discusses the challenges and the opportunities as well of working with the media in the context of a public participation program. And this is like chapter 14. Working with the media is a very important part of a planner's job. The media will be instrumental in helping you to get your message out about your plan, about what the city is trying to do. It's also a good way of advertise for getting people engaged in your project and give you comments. So it's very important for you to think about how be strategic through interacting with different media outlets that are available for you and that are free advertisements. I think that the planner must be professional, so at all times, but also be aware of your audience and be prepared to speak on your topic, have a lot of data and details about it, and at the same time, being able to engage someone in a story about your particular project in a way that is interesting to the general public. So this lecture will help you to prepare to respond to media requests, but also strategically thinking about how you can approach the media to get your message out and also to your specific audience, how you can prepare for interviews and also utilize different kinds of media and how you might engage with the reporters or the editor of the medium that you're seeking to be published in or have some kind of news coverage. So we hope that this lecture will help you feel confident about interacting with the media throughout your career, but a lot of this is theory, so you will have to actually like practice it and learn from those experiences. So I will be also presenting to you some of my own experiences working with the media. So when we talk about the media, it's something like very general. So we're talking about maybe newsletters or blogs. Maybe we're talking about letters to the editor or comments in a newspaper, or most commonly known as like op-eds, but also going to talking in the radio and also in the news. So this is like very broad. And again, as I said, when we talk about the media in this way, it's not about paid advertising, but most times that's like very expensive. And if either if you work in a nonprofit or the government, you will not be paying for those. So those are more like if you work for a private company, you will have some kind of advertisements. So, but again, the people in the different outlets, they do need content. So you are providing them with some of the content that they need, and they give you like free coverage. So planners can interact with the media in two different ways. So they might be asked to give a comment on a story that is local. Most times it's local. It's rare that somebody will ask you to pitch in something that is like national media. If you are a professor, you might get those requests. By working as a planner in your community, usually people will not ask you to do these things unless you have a very specific case study that maybe another city is like trying to learn from, or it's like really like very national interest. So when someone in the media reaches out to you, then we will call this like a response that is reactive. So you're reacting their request. But at times you might be required, or it's good for you to reach out to the media, to see if they have an interest in covering your planning initiative or your story. So this is a proactive way of approaching the, the media. In this psych session, I will offer 4 tips when responding to requests that are in a more reactive scenario, seeking your help. And then later on, we will talk about a more proactive scenario. So these tips will really help you to understand the media. The first thing that you have to understand about the media is that they are not your friend or your enemy. So they're just writing a story and they have constraints and deadlines. They work in very short time constraints. So they literally will call you or email you, and they want a response like right away. They will not be like waiting for days for you. They will move on and find the next person or the next person. So that just pay attention. If somebody reaches to you, then you should like basically email them immediately, and also provide your phone number, maybe some availability. Maybe you want to immediately say, well, what do you need, and start a conversation right away. But again, in terms of like how they see you as an informant. So you're someone who will provide information to them. They're not looking to help you in your project, or not to hurt you in your project. The idea is that they're just trying to do their job and cover a story. So again, they are not your friends or your enemies. So you have to be careful about what you said, and you have to be prepared, and so on. So they expect you to understand that they have also professional obligations. So they, just because you say something, it doesn't mean that it's like true or it's right. So they might talk to somebody else and try to see if that's the case, and that person might contradict what you said, and then you have a story that have different points of view. And at times that can be an adversarial relationship that they create with someone else. So just don't take it personally. This is what it is, and you should be aware of this. This is why you have to prepare and do your best, and don't screw up, I should say. um, so second, you should confirm that you actually have permission to speak on behalf of your agency, not because somebody like asks you. You are the best person to tell this story or to communicate. So you need to talk to your supervisor, and talk about like what are you allowed to say or not to say. Make sure that you're giving comments that are authorized, or if not, just like delegate that responsibility to somebody else, because it really can push you in a very bad position, and it can jeopardize the credibility of the plans, of what you're trying to do. And later on, it can be a problem for your agency. So in that case, it's even better to say no, and it is okay to say no, or to just say, oh, somebody else should do this. But most times it will be something that you can probably do if you're the main staff planner in that a project. Then you're probably the best person for the job. Just make sure that you have some kind of write up that says, these are my points, and just try to stay in point. Many times the person that is asking you questions, they might not know much about the project or story. So they might ask questions that are like unrelated, and you can see if they actually are not understanding. So just go back again to your story and to your main points. It's not that they're trying to be malevolent. It's more that they don't have the knowledge that you do in a particular project, or in planning. So you have to talk to them in a simple way that is like not technical, and bring them back to the issue at hand. You probably have heard enough narratives in the community that you can also express like different points of view, and it's fine to do that, but remember that you can get always misquoted, and it's kind of embarrassing when you're like, oh yeah, they cut that the middle of like what I said. So it's important that again you always representing your agency. And I think that the worst stories are like when you actually see that the person is not understanding. So that's happening to me before, that I am talking about something and they keep asking other questions, and I'm like, well, going back to the point. But sometimes even then they can write something, and when they write it, like it shows that they didn't get what you were trying to say, or maybe they don't get the topic as a whole. And many times they will not go back to you and ask you, because again they have very like short time frames, and they just have to like turn a story around, and they don't have time for you to like read it and check it. So what you said is what you said, and that's, and you have to be okay with that. But again, that's why it's so important to be very careful about what you say, so it doesn't damage it, damage your relationship with your employer and the agency that you work with. So the third, journalists are like looking for substance when they're making a request. So you remember to be clear, succinct, and if possible, give like data and backup for what you're saying. So just like memorize some numbers, memorize some the cross traits of the place that you're talking about, or maybe the financial incentives, or maybe there's a particular ordinance or code that it relates to that. Just make sure that you like cite the correct information, and that you are being giving them with that substance. And you also might do that outside of like a particular interview. You could give them like some points that you wrote, and sometimes like in, if it's like they approach you in email, they might even quote things, even if they interview you later, they might even quote things that you said in the email, and you can say that. You can say, um, oh, I'm just offering you these like other quotes, even after an interview, other quotes that I thought about, that I think that this more clearly um, says what I'm trying to say, or I don't remember that particular number, but here it is, and here's a quote. So you can even put it in form of a quote, like it's speaking, and sometimes they will grab that is in an email, even if the interview already passed, you can do that. And the other thing that you should know is that if you write something in an email, that could go in the news story, even if you say this is like off the record. There's no such a thing as a off the record. So if whatever is your correspondence with that person, or you talk to them on the phone even before setting up the interview, they can use that. And that's the nature of things. So nothing is off the record. Just make sure that what you say is actually what you mean. And the reason that nothing is off the record is because they are interested in writing an interesting story, right? An attractive story, and they might quote you in any way they can, whether they like it or not. I mean, whether or not you like it. I apologize about that. And then fourth, so this is our fourth tip, never comment on things that you don't know, and things that you don't understand. So I think that when I was like more on experience with the media, I wanted to um, just like say yes all the time, because I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like they're trying to like interview me. And sometimes I would not know too much about the particular legislation that they're asking. It's like a very hot topic, and they're like, oh, we need like professor at the University of Utah that can talk about this particular legislation in housing that the legislators are like looking at right now. And then I will be like, oh, I can't talk about that. I know enough about housing. And then I will read the ordinances, but I would not have enough time to prepare. I still will say yes and try to maybe talk about the things that I knew. But at the end, like even if I was quoted, I was not really like satisfied, and I felt I wasn't the best person to do the story. And obviously the journalists are grateful because you say yes, and then it could be that many people say no and no and no to them, and you're interested in getting your name out there too. But sometimes you don't feel just like good about it. So I would say be careful with that. And like most the best thing that you can do is like be confident in your topic and do something that you know a lot about, and trying to avoid those stories that they just want you to, they need someone to comment on something and you're like, oh yeah, I kind of do that, so I will do it. The other thing is that you can maybe they ask you something that you don't know, and it's okay to say I do not know about that. Maybe you can say I can find out and then email them later. But even if you agree for an interview, don't like make stuff up. Just like say I don't know. Don't feel like that you are pressured that you have to say something. And I have seen people saying something because they basically they have to say something, they feel that they have to say something, but actually they don't have to say something. They can say I don't know, and that's perfectly okay.